So, good morning to everyone. So, this is Dr. Kausar, Unnisa, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce and Management, GFGC KVA. So, in this session, we are going to have discussion on the essentials of good costing system. We know that a good costing system must consist of techniques, forms, and accounting records which are used to develop timely information about the cost of manufacturing specific products and for performing specific functions. Because cost accounting systems are most widely used in the manufacturing companies. But the cost accounting system is applicable to a wide range of business situations. For example, like these banks, accounting firms, and governmental agencies, etc. These techniques should be able to determine the cost of performing various service functions. Firstly, we should be able to determine the per unit cost of each manufactured product. Then we should be able to provide manager with information that will be useful in planning the future business operations and in controlling the cost. Because this unit cost can be determined by relating to the manufacturing cost, that is of cost of direct materials used, direct labor and manufacturing overheads, to the number of units manufactured. And they also provide managers with the information useful in setting the selling provision and to decide what products to manufacture and evaluate the efficiency of operations. So an ideal costing system provides the right and timely information to the management at the right time and the right direction to take the right decision. So a good costing system must contain some of the following characteristic feature what we have been located here. Let us will see one by one. That is, a good costing system must be very simple. It should be very simple and clear that so that an ordinary man can also able to understand the functions of the cost accounting. And the second essential contain that it must be suitable to all kinds of manufacturing concerns. See, because this costing system must be designed in such a manner that, so whether it is a small organization or a large organization, the system must be suitable to any type of concern or any type of organization. And the third essential thing that it must be very flexible. Flexible in the sense that it can be changed according to the time or according to the business. Such kind of principles or such kind of techniques must be adopted in the costing. And the next one is it must be economical, because maintaining a separate costing department and recording becomes a very expensive. Therefore, the expenses what we have been allotted on the basis of finance and it must be very less compared to the system what actually derived from the other concerns. So the expenses what we are going to get in the organization must be very economical. It should not be very heavy. And it must be comparable. The system, whatever the record that we are going to be maintained, it should be easily comparable from one year to the another year. Then only we can able to have our estimates and budgets can be prepared very easily. And the costing system must have a less clerical work, because if the statements or filling the forms, if it is a large, then it becomes very difficult. If it is a short, it is very easy to prepare the budgets, or it may be any kind of statements which is relating to any kind of department, then it will become very easy. So a good costing system must contain a less clerical work, and we can able to have the controlling technique also in the costing system. A good controlling technique is required to control the labor, to control the material and control the expenses also. If we are going to have a good controlling technique, then only we can able to minimize the wastages which is going to be happen in the case of material, labor and other types of overheads. And a good costing system must have effective wage system. See, whenever we are going to pay the remuneration to the laborers on the basis of the different jobs, where they have been worked, or on the basis of a proper timing schedule that has been undertaken by the, which has been worked by the workers. If the good systems are there or good costing systems are there where we can able to pay the incentive plans or bonus plans also. So such kind of system can be adopted to any type of organization. So a costing system must contain an effective wage system, and it should have an uniform. It should be all the forms and all the statements using by the cost accounting system must be uniform in the terms of size, on the terms of design and quality of the paper. And it must be departmentalization of expenses, because we know that in the organization there will be a different types of departments where the different types of department incurs have their own types of expenses. So which must be possible, because with the help of this costing system only we can able to ascertain the cost of different sections or different departments, right? Then only we can able to ascertain the overheads or the cost of all the types of departments, because in financial accounting we are not going to segregate in a different on different departments. Overall we are going to be considered. So a costing system, when we are going to be implement, it must have a good kind of a uh, proper plan of the implement of department wise expenses has to be undertaken. So these are all the essentials of a good costing system. Let us see some of the terms that we can able to come across, that is regarding to the cost concepts. What are the different cost concepts that we are going to be come across in case of cost accounting? We know that cost is nothing but the expenses which are going to be incurred, actual or notional, incurred, or it may be attributable to a specified thing or activity. It is nothing but the expenditure incurred to a particular product is called as cost. Let us we can able to have the difference between the cost, expense and loss. What do you mean by cost? Means it is nothing but the thing which is incurred before deriving the benefit. For example, prepaid insurance or advertising. See, before going to incur these expenses only, we are going to have the estimates, or we can able to see the estimated figure before deriving the profits. When the expenses are incurred, that is called as cost. But in case of expense, how we are going, we are going to have the what we are going to call it as expense, means the expense is nothing but it is also a type of cost which is incurred after derive the benefit. After getting the benefit, we are going to pay the things. It is nothing but wages paid to the workers. See, after the workers work only, we are going to pay the wages. That is considered, that is called as expense. After availing the benefit, being as a tenant in that particular home only, rent will be paid. It is called as rent paid will become an expense. It is not called as a cost. But see, prepaid insurance, we are not going to avail any type of benefit earlier, but later on we can able to avail the benefit. That is called as a cost. But cost and expense, the loss will become totally different. It is nothing but here the benefit we are not going to avail any time. It is nothing but incurring a loss. For example, goods destroyed by fire. Here we are not going to incur any type of expense or any kind of benefit we are going to be incurred, right? That is called as a loss. Let us be heard in the previous class only. We have come across cost center and cost units. What do you mean by this cost center? Cost center is nothing but a particular department, or we are going to call it as a unit, or we can call it as a separate what a division, where or a location or a person or a type of equipment also, where we are going to assign, or where we are going to calculate, or where we are going to ascertain the cost which are used for the purpose of control. That is called as cost center. Cost center may be a location, or may be called as a person, or may be called as an equipment, right? For which costs are going to be ascertained for the purpose of control. For what purpose of control has to be done, means it is for the purpose of usage of that particular location, or usage of that particular person, or that equipment. The ascertainment of cost is going to be called as cost center. See, we are going to have different types of cost centers. It may be marketing department, human, department, human resource department, finance department. See, these are all the different types of cost centers, right? Some may are going to avail the revenue, or some may not have the revenue kind of things, right? So some may have the production activity and others doesn't have the kind of what the revenue kind of activity, but we have to allocate and apportion the cost based on a location or a person. That is called as a cost center. See, in the case of cost center only, we are going to come across different types of cost center. One is called as personal cost center. What is this personal cost center means? Which is consist of person or group of persons. Here we are going to allocate the cost, right? Based on what means? Based on with a person or a group of person. We are considering that a particular unit be a individual person or a group of persons. And the next one is called as production cost center. What is this production cost center means? The costs which are going to be allocated related to a production department. The type of cost where we are going to be incurred, or they are going to be allocated on the basis of productions or to the production department. If you are going to assign the expense what is going to be incurred, that is called as production cost center. And the next type of cost center, that is called as service cost center. These service cost center are those which services to the production center. When the production center is uh, getting the services from the other cost center, that is called as the service cost center. So this is like an auxiliary kind of production cost centers. For example, for producing a particular product, it requires powerhouse or stores department or repairs department or canteen department. See, these are all come under the service cost center. For the purpose of producing a particular product, all these kinds of services are required. So where we are going to allocate the type of cost which is going, where the services are going to be rendered for the purpose of production center, that is called as service cost center. And the next one is called as impersonal cost center. What is this impersonal cost center means? So here we are not going to allocate for the group or a individual person. We are going to allocate which consists of location or a type of equipment. So when the costs are being allocated or deal with the equipment, machinery or location, that is called as impersonal cost center. Then what do you mean by operation cost center means? Those cost center which are concerned with the people or machines in activity. For example, if you are going to see that if we are going to calculate the operating cost center, for example, a bus services is being provided to the people or to the workers coming to the factory. So what are all the expenses that are going to be incurred for the maintenance of the bus or for the case of bringing the people from their home to the factory? That is called as operation cost center. So process cost center means the cost centers which are it is a type of cost center which is concerned with a specific process or a specific event. That is called as process cost center. Then what are the benefits that we are going to avail with the help of this cost center means? It helps us the organization for the creation of responsibility centers, and also it increases the operational efficiency, right? And if we are going to have a better implementation for the innovation and new technology also, then what are the drawbacks we are going to be seeing is, suddenly we can see that some of the cost centers are going to be, whether they are not rendering any type of revenue, but it increases the expenditure, and also it has a negative impact on the efficiency and productivity of a particular thing. Let us see one of the other concept, that is called as cost unit. What do you mean by this? Cost unit is nothing but the unit of product or a service or time in relation to which cost may be ascertained or expressed. That is called as cost unit. Again, in case of cost unit, we are having two types. One is the units of production and units of service. What is this units of production means? You can able to see a kilogram of chemical, a rim of paper, a ton of steel, meter of cable, right? See this kilogram, rim, ton, meter, these are all called as units. When these are all the units of production. What is called is units of service means it is nothing but passenger miles, consulting hours, room per day, bed per day. These are all called as a one bed per day. That is a cost unit. room per day, that will become a cost unit, right? So where we are going to have the we are going to allocate the cost on the basis of a product or service or time in relation to which the costs are going to be expressed. That is called as cost unit. And another one thing is called as cost object. What do you mean by this cost object? Is nothing but a product or a department for which costs are accumulated or measured. For example, when you see a product is the cost object for direct material, labor and manufacturing overhead. The factory maintenance department is the cost object for the cost of maintenance employees and maintenance of supplies. So that is called as cost object. Let us will go for the next thing concept, that is called as classification of cost. We know that cost classification is nothing but the process of grouping costs according to their common features or characteristics, because it becomes very necessary for detailed recording and accurate cost assignment. Cost classification is nothing but the process of grouping, segregating the cost according to their common characteristics. Let us will see what are the different types of categories we are going to we will come under. What are the, in that category, what are the different types of cost? Let us will see here the first category, that is called as classification by nature, or nothing but classification by nature or by the elements of cost. We know that primarily costs are classified according to the factors upon which they are incurred. Here, the cost can be classified into three broad categories. One will be the material, labor, and expenses. Let us will see what is this material cost. Based on the nature, the first type is material cost. What is this material cost means? It is the cost of raw materials consumed for production. The raw materials consumed for production, or the cost of materials where we are going to be used for the purpose of production, they are called as material cost. Again, in the case of material cost, we come across direct material cost and indirect material cost. What is this direct material cost means? Materials itself is that a things where we are going to involve for the purpose of production. Now see, what is this direct material? The direct material is nothing but material that enters and forms a part of a product. For example, if you are going to prepare a furniture, a chair or a table, what is the direct material? Timber is the direct material. For example, for the preparation of shoes, leather becomes a direct material. So again, in the case of material cost, we have to segregate. One is direct material, another one is an indirect material. Direct materials are those material cost which becomes a form or a part of a product to the direct material. That is called as direct material cost. And next one is indirect material. What are these indirect materials means? Indirect materials are those materials which cannot be traced as a part of a product. These direct materials can be identified very easily, can be traceable, can be seen very easily, but indirect materials cannot be seen. It becomes a part of a product. What are these indirect materials means? We can able to have some of the examples: fuel, lubricating oil. It cannot be seen, or some small tools which has been affixed for the purpose of producing a particular furniture or a chair. That is called as indirect materials. Again, the second type of cost is nothing but labor cost. What is this labor cost means? It is nothing but the salaries and wages that are going to be paid for the permanent as well as to the temporary employees during the time of manufacturing the goods. Again, in the case of labor cost or material wages and expenses, labor can also be called as wages. Again, this labor cost can be seen into two. One is direct wages, another one is the indirect wages, or direct labor cost and indirect labor cost, we call it as. What is this direct labor wages or labor means? Direct wage is nothing but the cost of wages paid to the laborers who help in altering the construction, composition, and conformation or condition of a product manufactured by a business house. Or these direct wages can also be called as productive wages, process, labor, and prime cost also. For example, we can say wages paid to the driver or conductor of a bus in a transport service. These are all comes in the category of direct wages, where exactly the people are going to be involved. For example, we can able to see the construction of house. The people, those who are involved, the workers, those who are involved for the construction, they are called as the wages what we are going to be paid. The cost where we are going to be paid, they are called as direct labor cost. Again, in the case of labor, only indirect labor or indirect wages we are going to be called as. What is there? What are these indirect wages means or indirect labors means? Indirect wages or indirect labors are those who are employed in the factory, which is auxiliary to the production, or the wages which cannot be directly identified with the job or with any particular process or with any particular operations. For example, we can able to say indirect labor such as foremen, supervisors, wages for the maintenance of the workers, cleaners, mechanics. These cannot be identified very easily, right? Or the men engaged in the transport, in the internal transport, or idle time wages, or miscellaneous allowance to the laborers, right? These are all comes in the category of indirect wages or indirect labor cost. The next category is called as expenses. So we know that expenses are nothing but the benefit can be availed. After availing the benefit only, the things are, the monetary terms are going to be paid. They are called as expenses. Again, in the case of expenses, there are two types. One is direct expenses, another one is indirect expenses. What are those direct expenses means? Those expenses which are neither direct material cost nor direct wages, but are directly identifiable with a job, process or operation. These direct expenses can also be called as chargeable expenses or prime cost expenses or process cost expenses, where these expenses are not incurred while the job or a contract in the process of execution, right? The utility of these expenses will be exhausted after the completion of a particular job or contract. For example, we can able to say that hiring charges for the construction of work, or cost of a special patron, or the expenses leading to a particular contract, or maintenance cost of a special tools, or the royalties to for a particular product. These are all comes under the direct expense cost. Next one is indirect expense. What are these indirect expenses means? The expenses which cannot be charged to a product directly, right? Or neither indirect materials nor for indirect wages. They are called as indirect expenses. Example, rent, rates, taxes, insurance, right? Canteen expenses, power, lighting, heating, depreciation. All these comes in the category of indirect expenses. This is the first category. And the next category is called as classification on the basis of functions. We know that there will be the main functions for manufacturing or selling, that is called as production, administration and marketing. In addition to the other functions, also selling and distribution functions also we can able to arise. So again, on the basis of classification, we have categorized into the production cost and commercial cost. What are these production costs? This production cost are nothing but all costs concerned with actual manufacturing or construction of the goods. Or this is the cost of sequence of operation, which begin with supplying of materials, labors and services and ends with packing of the materials. It starts from the materials supply from the fields till the end of the consumption or till the end of the consumer. What are all the expenses which are going to be incurred? They are called as production cost. Therefore, this production cost are going to be represent prime cost, right? This prime cost is nothing but the total cost of direct materials, direct labors and direct expenses. This can also be called as a factory cost and works cost. And the next commercial cost are nothing but the other than the prime cost. Other than the prime cost or production cost are nothing but the administration cost, marketing and selling cost, right? The what we mean, where we can able to see this administration cost means it is nothing but the expenses which are related directly to the, which cannot be directly related to the production, marketing, to the research department, right? So We can say that administration expenses, they are in the nature of indirect expenses, which include salaries to the office staff, accountants, or to the directors, or maintenance of factory, rent, rates, depreciation, postages, telephone expenses. These are all come in the category of administration expenses. And other commercial expense, we can able to see this marketing cost and selling cost, where the costs which are going to be incurred for to research the potential market and to promote the products in a particular attractive forms, or we can to secure the orders, or usually we are going to include the salesman salary, commission, traveling expenses, all comes under the category of commercial cost. That is on the basis of function. And the next category, that is called as traceable cost, means identifiable cost. Again, on the basis of classification of traceable, we are going to come across, one is direct cost, another one is the indirect cost. So those costs which can be identified very easily with a specific cost unit or with a specific cost center, they are called as a direct cost. Example, we can able to say the materials used in manufacturing of a product or a labor involved with the production process. It is called as direct cost. And the next one is those costs which are incurred but cannot be identified very easily, but we can able to allocate or apportion to a particular cost center. They are called as indirect cost. Next, on the basis of normality, we can able to have the cost classification under two types. One is normal cost, another one is abnormal cost. Normal cost, we know the level of production increases or decreases, so the cost has to be incurred, right? That is called as normal cost. Abnormal cost means these costs are not normally incurred to the level of output of production, right? During the case of normal levels, it cannot be allocated or it cannot be charged, but these costs are charged to the P&L account as a part of cost of production. They are called as abnormal cost. And the last type of category, that is called as classification of cost on the basis of behavior. We can able to see three types of cost. One is variable, fixed, and semi-variable cost. What is this variable cost? We know that it is the cost which tends to follow the level of activity or which vary directly with the level of output. These variable costs are also known as the direct cost. For example, the variable cost may be direct materials, direct labor, direct expenses, and variable overheads. To the level of activity, the expenses directly proportionate or directly increases, that is called as variable cost. Next is fixed cost. Whether the level of activities may increases or decreases, but the fixed cost remains constant. It will not have any kind of effect on the unaffected changes in the level of activity in a particular period of time. They are called as fixed cost. And the next one type of cost is semi-variable cost. In case of fixed cost, we can able to say some of the examples, that is rent rates for a factory, or salary to the managers or to the administration managers or to the sales managers, right? In case of semi-variable cost means those costs that contains partly fixed and partly variable expenses. They are called as semi-variable. They can also be called as semi-fixed cost, because these costs are partly affected by the fluctuations in the level of activity. Example, we can able to say normal maintenance of buildings and plants, or telephone expenses, depreciation on plant and machinery, is all come in the category of what? Classification according to the type of behavior. So with this, I am going to conclude that in this session we have come across regarding to the different types of cost concepts and the essentials of a good cost system, as well as the classification of cost. With this, I am going to end the session. Thank you.